technology kind of view. Somebody mentioned the RTO example. Let me give you a different kind of example which counters this RTO with one button pressing. When Karnataka computerized the land records 7, 8, 10 years ago now maybe, they did a very good way of doing it. One, the land records were computerized, it made it very easy to access. You didn't have to go to the one person, the Patwari with his register and so on. An earlier system was you had to go to the Patwari, he would not be in your village, he'd go somewhere. So you traveled and went there. When you went there, he's not available. If he's available, he will say he's not there. Then you would say, I've come all the way. And he'll say, no, I have no time now. Then you have to make things nice for them. Give him something in cash or kind. Then he opens his register. Then he say, your name is not there. All kinds of problems. Computerization removed all those. But they did one very good thing. It wasn't just computerized. You could pay 10 rupees and get your land record, but from anywhere. So if I went to this place where there was a computer thing saying, I want my land record, give him 10 rupees, and he has to give me a printout and says, come tomorrow, I can go to somebody else. Immediately, corruption came down. Again, I stress not to zero. It won't come to zero, but it came down hugely. And the sort of satisfaction levels, the ease and comfort was just phenomenal. If you talk at that time to everybody in Karnataka, the transformation from what was to what they did through this was truly phenomenal. At the grassroots level, I think these are the kinds of things, when we all talk of corruption and the whole country is going to the dogs, I think there are many examples of good things which we should not overlook. This is not to put the bad under the carpet, but there are many good things which have been done between technology and processes and good thinking. Because this was done by the government, this was done by politicians and bureaucrats, the people you criticize. They set up this system. And they have the foresight to say that you need not go only to your Patwari who's marked out that your village comes under this circle. You can go to anybody, anywhere in the state, give your plot number and you will get a printout. That's it. I think these kinds of things are also there in what's done. But back to the corruption, yes, it is widespread. Whether it's increased or no is questionable. The discussion on corruption has increased, and I think that's a good sign. That many people are now discussing it. It's open. There's some degree of accountability and so on. I think that.
Mr. Karnik, you must have realized that when we started with the good governance, ultimately all the discussion is only on corruption. Now these are two things. When you work on the committees, how far are you able to segregate this good governance and corruption, and then try to see that one does not affect the other, and you come to the solutions either on the good governance or tackling the corruption? Does corruption overshadow your good governance decision?
You asked a very perceptive question. As you might have seen from my comments, maybe I'm very much a minority, and I think the two are related because good governance reduces corruption. I keep saying reduce, and I think that gives away my take on it. But I think to make corruption zero is an idea we should all aspire to. In some sense, mathematically, asymptotically, you might get there, but I don't think you'll ever reach there. And therefore, good governance is very critical. Corruption, as I said, being from a very rational, objective point of view, I repeat what I've been saying, that I think somebody will find a clever way of yet making money. And therefore, to me, it's not an either or, but between the two, the trade-off certainly is to emphasize on good governance. Because corruption, much as you want to root it out and much as you do something, you will never get to saying there is no corruption. Somebody will find a way. That is human ingenuity, and I talked about Indians, but I think around the world it's human ingenuity that you find some way. If you go to a country, develops, it has nothing to do with incomes, or poverty, or black money or something. You go to the US and you see corruption even there, maybe in a different form, in a different way, you see it there. You go to countries, that's why I gave the example without saying so, of the Soviet Union. So it's not a capitalist phenomenon or a communist phenomenon, it's not an Indian phenomenon or a phenomenon that doesn't obtain there. People talk of Singapore. I can tell you I've actually seen it there in very clever ways. It's a much different sort of country. But certainly through good governance, through transparency and technology, you can reduce it very, very substantially, and you can make life much easier and quicker for most people. But to imagine that we can, overnight reach this heaven of saying no corruption at all, I think is a dream. And I think if we focus on good governance, specifically to your question, the corruption will automatically come down. If you focus too much just on corruption, I think you start getting into the wrong direction, because then You get to the other extreme, you start building in so many laws, as the gentleman was just saying, then you tend to think that you want some dictatorial thing with that perfect person, and let me say something very controversial, you get to the Anna Hazare model. But no, we want one huge organization which will oversee and make sure everybody is right. How do you know that person won't be corrupt? Is the policeman being corrupt? In our country and countries around the world, it is ultimately, very often, the lawmaker who breaks the law. So when you get to that stage, what are you going to say about zero corruption? You can't have this perfect individual who is then going to make sure nobody is corrupt. Now, given that, if you focus on good governance, it will automatically bring down corruption, and you continue to try to work on making sure that when there is a loophole, you close it, and hopefully you do it in anticipation, not after it's happened. But you always be a battle which you can never completely win.
So can I say just one thing?
Sure. I have something special to say is the responsiveness of the good governance will rely on and increase the faith on the citizen. If that is done, that model is done properly, or the process engineering is done properly. What is missing today is basically the responsiveness by each citizen onto a given system, and their feedback system is not properly catered to, or it is missing something like a robust model within the feedback system of any process. So how do you see about that point? Because that will enhance the more it will enrich the ethical values among the whole system.
This is certainly a good point, and I think two kind of, not answers, but two reactions to your question. One is much more citizen participation in of these, so you're absolutely right. Every time I see this thing about Goa, I forget what was, of 80% voting, I think that is the kind of participation I think that you need. Now, you may or may not vote in people who are right or wrong, but I think the participation is there. Number two, again, linking your question in some way to technology, many people have this thing saying, and I think this cuts both ways, the thing to just think about and leave the thought with you, that should you have instantaneous thing, technology today makes it possible, it's like your instant voting, and some of us see this on TV programs, or SMS your reaction immediately, who's a better captain, Dhoni or Ganguly, every reaction, they got some 7,000 reactions within the space of 15 minutes. You can do that kind of thing for participation and decision making, but there are dangers in that, because sometimes those things tend to get swayed by the sort of flavor of the moment, and people can get carried away. So there's something to saying that a process which is a little slower, which takes its time, it's a democratic process but it's not instantaneous, because many people say with new technology, democracy can be instantaneous democracy, the so-called online town hall. So should I do this or that? The decision maker says, and the whole country votes immediately. Then next decision. There's dangers in that.
Maybe that we need.
Absolutely. So I think you need to look at what kind of model is workable in what kind of system. So as has been well put in the past, that democracy is the worst of all systems except all others. I'm paraphrasing what has been said. So it's that it has huge amount of loopholes and problems, and then you get things moving. People keep criticizing politicians. Ultimately, we are the ones who elect them. So can you do something about that? Now, this is not an excuse for them at all, but I think there are things to think about there of how the system works. And so it's a slow correction system, and I think from your thing I can see your bent of mind that the feedback cycle, the server loop, so to say, the server system has to be quicker correction. It has to be able to correct the system. You go one way or the other, you come. Any server system here that you go too far and you correct it. You don't get exactly, you go this side and you come back. So you will see a little bit of that back and forth, but technology helps you to do that.
I'm Annabelle Pereira, Annabelle Pereira. Actually, I'm concerned about the information technology scenario in Goa. I think NASSCOM has been a vibrant force, and thanks to the dedication and devotion of the erstwhile software messiah for India, Devang Mehta, I mean, India was on the global map. And I think the global revenue had even touched 50 billion in the year 2000. Now, between 1990 and 2000, Devang Mehta made a research study in Goa to make Goa a second Silicon Valley of India. And he did tremendous research. He located 7 ideal sites for Goa to be on the information technology map. He even liaised with the stalwarts in the industry like Narayana Murthy, Nazim Premji, but unfortunately the governments during 1900 and 2000 we had 10 different chief ministers, and unfortunately the policies could not be carried through. Now I want to know whether NASSCOM still has a catalyst role in promoting information technology. If so, because so far I see that there are only 5 states in India, that's Andhra, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Delhi and Punjab, which have really excelled in the information technology scene, whereas the others have not made fast strides. Now I'm particularly interested in Goa and whether NASSCOM can play an active role for us to help us to get information technology started in a right way, because this is a new government we have in force now, and I would like to see that jobs, according to Devang Mehta, there were going to be about 100,000 jobs created in 3 years for the youth, because software technology is an employment generation factor. So I would like your comments on this, sir.
A bit away from governance per se, and I can't speak authoritatively for NASSCOM any longer, but I can't but resist answering your question, partly because it pertains to where we are right now and also an area of deep interest to me. Yes, you're absolutely right. A lot of work was done by Devang trying to look at Goa at that stage. Things didn't happen for a variety of reasons. Subsequently, NASSCOM has continued to look around the country, including in Goa, on many occasions to try and see what can be done here. One of NASSCOM's efforts, and continuing, it wasn't just something I started, even now, it's going on very strongly, is to look at creating new centers for the IT industry in different states and also in different cities, because it's not just these states which you rightly mentioned. You actually picked up the right states which are leaders in this. But even in those states, it tends to be concentrated just in one city or around 1 or 2 cities. If you look at Maharashtra, it's Bombay and Pune, more Pune than Bombay. You look at Andhra, it's all Hyderabad. When you go outside Hyderabad, a little bit in Vizag, nowhere else. You go to Tamil Nadu, it's mostly Chennai, with a little bit of smattering in Coimbatore, nothing else. So NASSCOM has worked very diligently at trying to say, can we promote new states and new centers? And this is not just something good to do, but it is in the industry's self-interest, because that always works best. It's enlightened self-interest, saying we need more centers because we need to tap more people. This industry is unique in that, unlike other industries, and certainly older industries, when I was growing up, you went to where jobs were. So you migrated from a small town to a big city, you went from a bigger city into the large cities if you were well qualified. Some people chose to go abroad because jobs were there. But in this industry, jobs go to where there are people. But where there are people is not just any people, it needs certain kinds of people. And they automatically go there. You don't have to do much. Yes, the government has to create a somewhat positive environment, but they tend to go where there are people, which among the many characteristics, one is where there are a fair number of technology savvy people, so people with a large number of engineering bases. Second, people who are reasonably facile with English language, because this industry is very outward facing, it's not so much domestic as outside world. Third, it has to have good connectivity, electronic connectivity most important, but also a degree of physical connectivity, because people need to come up and down, customers go, employees have to go to the customer sites. And finally, the point I made earlier, it must have a conducive environment. The soil must be right, so to say. Now, these conditions together were there in a few states, which is where the industry took off there. The question which we have been facing for a long time is, can you create those conditions in other states? Can you somehow make it happen? Now, there are many contender states apart from the 5 you mentioned, and some of them are beginning to do well. Everything from, Orissa and Gujarat to, of course, West Bengal, which has picked up a deal, to even states like Meghalaya and Assam. We've got centers going in Shillong, in Guwahati, Rajasthan is picking up in Jaipur. But it's been slow, because in all these states, the confluence of these conditions has been difficult. You either don't have enough technical people in terms of numbers, and not just qualified, it's not number of meetings. Do they have the right attitude and aptitude? And sometimes it's the environment. Now, in this context, I must mention one thing. I'm taking some time, but I think it's very important because it's Goa-centric, and I do want to spend a little time on this. I said, personally, it's something I feel strongly about. Many of us, and I try to do this, is to say that this industry is the right industry for Goa because it is high value, it creates jobs, and yet it's a clean industry. It's non-polluting. It's very, very important for states like Goa. You don't want all kinds of industries coming here and polluting the place. So we thought this would be a good place. Goa has additional advantage that its connectivity is good because this is something which other states suffer from. You mentioned Punjab, and one of my grouses all the time with my very good friend, the governor there used to be Lieutenant General Rodriguez at that time, was connectivity. I said, Chandigarh, the flights only to Delhi, General, how do you expect people to come to the international industry? He says, when I go to the US, I drive 3 hours from the airport in the city. Why can't people go from Chandigarh to Delhi in 3 hours, you're there in the Shatabdi? I said, that's a different context, it doesn't work here. People want that connectivity. Which is why they're in Bangalore, they're in Hyderabad, they're in Chennai, they're in Bombay, even Pune has problems, but Pune has international flights. So Goa doesn't have that inherent disadvantage because though there are some constraints, it's a little better. Their connectivity is better within the country. Outside the country is a problem, which is a serious problem. The other thing about Goa, and I mentioned this as a friend of Goa, and I think it's a good thing to me, but in the context of this industry it may have problems. There's a lot of my friends from industry, every time I try to push Goa, they would say, Goa, great place for a holiday, very nice environment, nice people, but they'll back here. They're not going to work 12 hours a day. They want to go off. We won't get the same work culture. And I used to give them an example to counter this, which some of you, I don't know how many people, some of you might be familiar. Pune. Goa has, what's the right word for it? Sussegat. Pune is the ultimate in that. From 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock, you can't buy anything in Pune. You can't go to a shop in Pune. And the software industry is thriving in Pune. It's become one of the very, very big centers. Because this industry has changed the system there. The shops are yet closed, but the young people who work in this industry are working 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. And then, of course, they have fun, they party, they do other things, but they're there. So I said, no reason why it won't happen in Goa. We just got to be there. So I think there are possibilities there. But the concern yet is not enough technical manpower, which is built up slowly to come. Second, there is some concern about what you mentioned, that now in the last few years, I think it's changed, but at that time certainly concern was, in a general sense, the stability of policy, not just that the chief minister is changing every year or 2 years, but the policy, does the policy keep changing back and forth? That's something, the business hates uncertainty, any business. You say you'll be taxed 50% and they'll cry and scream and make representation, but they will take it. But if you say, I will decide every month how much you tax you will pay, disaster. It doesn't work. They want to know what it is, they make their plan accordingly and do it. So the concern with changes was whether it means changing policies. May or may not have happened, that is a kind of concern. So I think these factors are there. Now, I think it's overcome. There's a new wave in the technology industry today. The good thing is that a lot of that has to do with looking at new kinds of things. And one of the special things I think Goa would be very, very good for is to create some really high-end IT. And I say high-end because high-end IT around the world requires people to come from different places. You don't necessarily depend only on local. You need a large local base, but you want the experts to come from other cities, other states, other countries. And that's the trend worldwide. For that, Bangalore, one of the reasons why Bangalore took off was that it's a very conducive place for outsiders. Outsiders feel comfortable in Bangalore. I can tell you this, I'm stretching this point, but let me tell you. Whenever I ask you from Delhi, will you go to Chennai? And again, I'm being very frank, particularly incorrect. Chennai, that language, I don't even know what it is. They've all idli sambar, what do I eat? I can't survive it. I asked them, will you go to Hyderabad? They said, Hyderabad bit is better, but Hyderabad, no, yeah, Hyderabad is a different place. Will you go to Bombay? Delhiites will tell me, Bombay, yeah. A lot of activity, a lot of life, tremendous energy, great corporate stuff. But I'm staying in a matchbox there. Yeah, I'm used to staying in this nice place in Delhi. All Bombay houses are, the total house will fit in my drawing room. I'm not going there. When they, will you go to Bangalore? They say yes. I say, Bangalore is good. Nice weather, cosmopolitan place, very important. Very comfortable to go to, outsider friendly. I mention these because to me Goa has exactly those advantages. I find it's outsider friendly, very cosmopolitan atmosphere. It's a place where people can be comfortable. It's a place where outsiders, because of tourism, because of your history, because of local people, are welcome. And so I think it has a lot of the inherent advantages. Now what is lacking is beginning to pick up is some technical manpower, and I think that will happen. But also you need a government that really is actively to move this industry. See, one has to realize the competitive environment. Every state is going and doing this industry today, saying, come and invest in my state. Because it creates employment, it creates value. Every state is doing this. So Goa has to proactively do that. And then certainly it will be promoted. I think it's something that's there. To me, the prospects are good, it's there. The last point, which may be a little difficult in Goa, I'm not so familiar, is this industry is not land intensive, but they do want some land. And this is an industry that, rightly or wrongly, you might say, why do you need so much space? It got used, that got spoiled with this thing of having a campus like this. So unless you can make sure the state government or privately they can acquire land in reasonable size, it will be very difficult. Most of these companies, when they go to a new state, their first demand is, can you give me land and show it to me? I'm paying for it, I don't want free land, but show me the land and can you give me at least 10, 20 acres. And now that has been made more complicated by the government by saying if you want a special economic zone and therefore some tax benefit, you need 25 acres. Nothing less than that. And finally, to your question of NASSCOM, therefore, partly for states like Goa, but across the board, we've been pushing the government, which now seems to be happening, is that for the knowledge industry, not just IT, but the knowledge industry, don't make this ridiculous thing of 25 acres. You can say so much built up space, you can even say so much employment, but don't say 25 acres. We are not a factory, we don't need huge, it's a nice land with a nice campus, 25 acres. So if that happens, you begin to see some traction happening.
In fact, yesterday I was meeting some captains of industry from the IT industry and the financial institution for the back-end offices back in Goa. They were not worried about Susagand or the laid-back attitude, but what they were worried, small minor hitches like last mile hitch or the power sector, which is not in because the guy in US is not going to wait if your power is going to fail here. He needs his the product immediately. So all these things they were talking about. But one thing they were very sure is that there are enough people who have been sent by Goans and have given good service in TCS, Wipro, Cognizant. There are a lot of Goans who are doing human service there. So they are very confident about Goans. They said there is no problem about it. But the problem is this needs to be taken care of. And I think they're, on 30th of June, we are having a investor promoter meet for the same. So that,